WashU basically is able to endorse 4 candidates each year to the Goldwater for a scholarship. It's like a $5,600 scholarship that renews each year from the time that you get it. And I would say the most important criterion of all the criteria that are listed on the website is research potential. So because of that, you will often see that the most successful applicants tend to be juniors, only because they've got a little more research under their belt. But that ought not to preclude sophomores out there among you from considering an application, because as I say, for all the fellowships, the process is a really good one, and I think it's good practice for you in general. And if you reapply in the next year, in the junior year, you'll be that much more prepared. So the application itself is pretty straightforward. It consists of what is essentially an activity sheet where you will indicate what your research experience has been, what your presentations have been, what your publications have been, if you have any. That's sort of the upfront section of the application. Then there are a series of shorter answer questions. The first of these is, what is your career goal? What is your professional goal? So what kind of training would you need to realize it? The second question is a little bit more like a mini personal statement. That question wants to know how you got inspired to pursue the research you are keen to pursue. And then there is a third question, which is essentially trying to get at any obstacles, either social or economic, that might have hindered you in the pursuit of undergraduate research. Not everybody will be able to answer that question, and that's fine. So those are the 3 upfront sort of questions after a brief description of your activities around research in college. The Goldwater's not particularly keen to know what you did prior to college. I think you want to limit most of your research to what you've been doing as a college student. That being said, if it's research that's ongoing or contributed to what you're doing as a WashU undergraduate researcher, you might well want to list it. Or if you were published in high school, you might well want to list it. The final part of the application, and I apologize to people for whom this might be redundant, is a research proposal. This is a very formal journal style article that you will write. It's only 2 pages long, single spaced, 12-point font. You can have figures included in this. It should be written very much for a technical audience. Anticipate that there are experts reading your statement. Typically, you will see students describe a current research project in very great detail. And at the end of that scholarly kind of article, this journal proposal, they will clarify what the potential for this research is, why they think it's important, and what they think the impact on the discipline may be. So students who are not currently pursuing a project that lends itself to that kind of a statement are certainly welcome to be prospective in writing a research proposal. And in this way, you may point to foundational research projects that you've already undertaken, describe them in great detail, and where you think you would like to do research building upon what you've already accomplished and done. And again, try to clarify for the reader why it's important, where it could take the discipline. So that's kind of the application in a nutshell for you guys in terms of the work that you would have to produce. The application also requires 3 letters of recommendation. 2 of those letters really should come from research mentors. That is, people who've not given you grades, but have worked with you in a laboratory context, in a research context. So it could be your PI and maybe the postdoc. It could be anybody who can speak to your work ethic, your analytical problem-solving ability, creative problem-solving ability in a lab setting. So those are 2 of the letters. Sometimes you can get a third. It's not often that we have undergraduates who can come up with 3 letters of that nature. But if you can, that's great. If you can't, your third letter is likely to come from an academic writer. I would encourage you, and by academic writer, I mean somebody who's given you a grade. I would encourage you to think about somebody who would make sense in terms of the Goldwater, somebody who's going to be able to look at your academic work and say, yes, this student, based on the work I'm seeing here, clearly has potential to do graduate level research, to have a career as a research scientist. So you'll need to kind of think about those 3 writers, potential writers, when you're percolating about whether or not you want to apply. And let me pull up the chat. So if you have any questions while I'm like talking at you, I've got the chat open, start throwing them at me. Any questions, I'm more than happy to answer. In order to so that's the application itself. In order to start the process, you will want to go, if you haven't done so already, to the Goldwater website. There you will find there's a link for you to apply, and I can pull that up if you want me to at the end of this conversation. And you will fill out the pre-application portion of the website. The pre-application requires you to enter just some basic information, your GPA, your major, and then also the 3 people whom you will select as writers. So before you fill out the pre-application, it would be very wise actually to formally reach out to your writers and let them know that you're hoping that they can write on your behalf for the Goldwater. That way, when our office reaches out to them, because you've indicated that they're going to write for you, they won't be surprised. They won't be like, what? Who? I'm doing what? So make sure you make that clear and make sure that they've agreed to write on your behalf before you're indicating them on the pre-application. So that's probably going to be your first step, is to cogitate a little bit, probably this weekend, about who could write on your behalf. And then you will want to reach out to them. And my advice about reaching out to letter writers, I think, is helpful. It's advice that I think you should follow moving forward in general, whether you're going to be applying MD, PhD, or whether you're going to be going straight PhD. When you're getting letters of recommendation for fellowships, for graduate school, help your writer, because the very best letters of recommendation come from people who can supply very specific anecdotes about you. And they're not just filled with platitudes like, oh, Jackson Butler's super smart, or oh, Jacob Dodd is like a rock star. Those are all nice comments, but they mean nothing without substantive examples to support them. So you can help your writer do this if you pull together a little dossier when you make your letter request. So you can do a cursory kind of preliminary request and say, hey, would you mind writing? Do you think you could write a good letter? If they say yes, at that point, you would supply your dossier. And by dossier, I just mean a little portfolio of materials. This should include an updated resume, obviously. If you're asking an academic writer, I recommend that you tell that writer why you're asking them. In fact, this applies to all your writers. What have you learned from that individual? What have you valued from them? What have they taught you from their own expertise, their own mastery, and what do you admire about them, and why are you asking them? That should be a part of your dossier, a small statement. The second part that you want to include is, if possible, the way in which you feel like you meet the criteria for the Goldwater, okay? And then the third thing that you want to include is, if you've done, particularly for your academic writers, if you've done any work that you think is very helpful in giving specific concrete evidence of your potential for research, give it back to them. So if you've got an excellent lab and you're going to have, your Orgo lab professor write on your behalf, give them that lab work so that they can be really specific about it. Likewise, in the research context, if you've been undertaking something within your project that you think's been really productive and really valuable, and your PI runs a big lab and maybe isn't down in the reads with you, give them a little synopsis, provide them with some material so that they can be super substantive and specific in the letter of recommendation. So that's the advice I give you for letters. And then basically all of those materials, the letters of recommendations will be supplied through the interface on Goldwater. You will likewise upload your application to the Goldwater site. All of those things are due December 17th. So, or rather December 18th. So I would encourage you guys, if you think you want to do it, to be thinking right now about the professors who could write for you, because you're going to probably want to ask them next week so that they have a full month to pull together a letter. And they're probably already being tapped by seniors who are applying to grad school anyway. So you want to give them some wiggle room. Your materials are 100% due December 18th on the portal. If professors find they need a little more time, we can probably give them some wiggle room, but start with that date of the 18th as the date we'd like to have the materials. As far as the internal process goes, we will pull together a committee. It's a long-standing committee I've pulled together of science faculty from every department, from Earth and Planetary, from physics, from math, from bio, from chem. I'm trying to think of what else I'm forgetting. I think that's kind of all, yeah, I think that's pretty much everybody. And they review the candidates and they are really damn good at picking them out. Last year, every single WashU candidate who was nominated was, every candidate who's endorsed won. And I haven't yet had a year without a winner or an honorable mention. And I think that's testament to the skill of our committee in identifying really strong candidates. That being said, we can only endorse 4. So, you know, if you're not successful this first time around and you're a sophomore, I would encourage you to think about it in the following year. Students will probably find out mid-January if they have been selected for endorsement, so that you have time to refine your application material, you know, have your PI review it. If I have feedback that the committee gives you to improve your application as an endorsed candidate, I will give you that feedback. And then you will be submitting to the Goldwater site early in February. I can't recall the date off the top of my head, but we have some time, and that's something that really only the endorsed candidates need to worry about. But that's the internal process. And yeah, that's kind of it. I guess I could turn it over to you, the audience, to see what questions people might have. Okay. So one person says, I'm a current sophomore. I did some research in high school and had a research position set up for this semester, but have not yet been able to do research due to COVID. Would I still be a viable candidate, or would it be better to wait and apply as a junior? I think, to be honest, it will depend upon what the rest of the pool of applicants looks like. It's kind of hard for me to anticipate. I am aware that the Goldwater is aware that a lot of research opportunities have been put on hold due to COVID. That being said, many juniors should have had the opportunity to get something under their belt. And my guess is that it will be more competitive for you to be successful, just not having been able to undertake anything truly as an undergraduate, if that makes sense. You wouldn't be able to have a current PI speak to your application probably quite as effectively, if that makes sense. Another individual wants to know, how many people do I expect to apply? Well, let's see, we've got, 16 students who are attending this. I think we already have 6 or 7. Dorothy, I don't know if you know how many people are on the Goldwater pre-application site already. I think we've got about 6 or 7 kids who are already on the pre-application site and are approved. So potentially, if there's no attrition in this list, potentially a little over 20 kids could apply. That would be a super high number. Normally we don't have more than like 15. So it will be a competitive year, but if you're keen to get some really excellent experience, If you're a junior who is looking down the road towards graduate school applications and wanting to line up letters, I can't underscore enough that it is valuable to undertake this exercise at this moment. It can be really helpful. One other thing I would say is that if you're MD, PhD, that can be a little bit of a hurdle with the Goldwater. We have had successful MD, PhD candidates, but they tend to like straight PhDs more than that MD, PhD combination. Any other questions, or do people feel like they've got, do people want me to pull up, if you, in the chat, you can tell me, I could pull up the Goldwater website if that would be helpful, but I'm pretty confident most of you probably know where it is. Yeah,
there's a few more questions in the chat box, not the Q&A, but in the chat.
Okay, let me see. So, okay, right. How important are publications to the application? You know, I think it depends upon how strong your research statement is. Having publications as an undergraduate is a pretty high level accomplishment. If you have remarkable letters of recommendation and really interesting, strong research under your belt, you may not yet have a publication. So I think more than anything, it's your potential for research, to the extent that a publication kind of is a peer-reviewed way of like sort of stamping you as tenable. They're helpful, but I don't think they're essential. Clarify what materials are due by December 18th. The whole application, including letters of recommendation, are all due by December 18th. If your letter writers are hard pressed by that date, they can reach out to me individually, and I can work with them about having an extension. Juniors are not given priority. This is one space where literally merit-based assessment is 100% true. The Goldwater is only interested in one thing, for good or for bad. They're not interested in diversity. They're not interested in anything but your potential as a researcher. So, you know, whether that's a good or a bad thing is not up for me to discuss, but that's the nature of this application. So if you're a junior and there's 4 sophomores who are better than you, those 4 sophomores are going to win. Hang on, I've got another. Yes, I do believe one of the 2 research letters can be from a graduate student in the lab. Yes, that is not problematic. Your best letter writers are going to come from those individuals who know you well in that context. So absolutely, a grad student could write. Yes. I think I'm hitting most of them. I know I kind of talked at you a lot, but I thought this would be more efficient than meeting with you all individually, because there are a lot of you who are interested. Let's see here. Are grad student postdoc letters weighted less than PI letters? No, you know, and this is something that's important for you all to know in general, in terms of graduate school and fellowships and life in general. You know, I have kids who apply for the Rhodes who get a letter from, you know, a senator. And if that senator does not know them well, that letter doesn't mean anything. But if they have a grad student who knows them really well and can be very specific about their skills, that letter is so much more valuable than the status of the PI that doesn't know you very well. Now, when you have them converge, when you have a PI who knows you very well, then you're golden. But the best thing is specificity in a letter of recommendation. You don't want letters that are just platitudes. And I can't underscore that enough. So yeah, a PI, a grad student who knows you better than a PI will be more valuable. Postdoc too. Anything else you need to know before creating an account on the Goldwater website? Here's what I would tell you, sort of in terms of ranking of the criteria. Research is the most important. Your letters of rec, rigor of the curriculum, and your GPA. I think if you've got a GPA under 3.8, it'll be harder, but not impossible if you've got remarkable research under your belt. Yeah, and the letters of recommendation and the research proposal itself are probably the most important pieces. So if you've got a little bit of a lower GPA, which I don't think any of you do, I think you all are on here because you got super high GPAs. You should be just fine. There's not too much, and you can go ahead and create an account. And if you feel like you just can't do this at the end of the semester, that's fine. This is something you have to decide you feel is beneficial enough for you, whether you win or not, to undertake. Okay. I don't know if there's anything else. Does anybody have any other questions, or are we feeling pretty good? Once we're, oh wait, can the academic letter be from a research program director who also teaches a class for that program? Yes. So example would be Mark Ustar. We've had some superb candidates come through Mark Ustar, and James Skeeth has written letters. So absolutely, yes, 100%. That would be a viable letter writer, particularly because our research program director has seen lots of undergraduates conducting research, right? So they've got a good sort of metric against which to measure you as an applicant. I don't know if we have anything else. People feel like they have a good sense of what is entailed. I am more than happy once we get to December 18th, or not December 18th, once we get into December, to look at some of your materials. For the next few weeks, I'm going to just be flat out with registration advising. But in the interim period, after the 3rd of December, which is when the first years register, through the 18th, I'm more than happy to assess sort of editorially your materials. But my PhD is in classics, so I can't get at the nitty gritty of your scientific proposal. But I am more than happy to just read for clarity and editorial ends, if that's helpful. But if we don't have any more questions, I won't keep you guys on the line any longer because I know we're all Zooming constantly. But I think that should answer it. If you're reluctant to, post a question here, you can also shoot me an email. That's fine. But I think that's kind of it. And if people don't have any more questions, we can simply say goodbye. And I appreciate your popping in, and I appreciate your interest in the Goldwater. Okay. All right. So I think we're done.